You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
All right, episode 3. We've been talking about rice. We've been talking about Gullah Geechee heritage. And what we haven't been talking about feels like the delicious elephant in the room. And we're talking about bread.
Yeah.
Give us this bread, our daily bread.
I'm about to. Yeah.
So let's get this bread.
Let's get this bread.
Sasha. Oh my gosh. So we're going to get some bread. And the culmination of these episodes, when you first pitched this idea of doing a personal narrative, exploring your cultural background and through an academic lens, but also through the sociocultural lens and through Dr. Etta Fields Black's research, through Judith Carney's research, I was very excited to take these intangible things that as a Black person, you just know about yourself. You can taste your DNA, and maybe you can't articulate it, and maybe we don't talk about it because of the intergenerational trauma and the trauma that's passed down through being on the boat. But these things that you just know in your spirit, and I was very excited that you pitched to us that you wanted to bake bread from one bread baker to another. That's kin. I love that.
Oh, be careful now. I'm not no child. I'm an amateur at best, and y'all will hear it on the recording. But, well, let's talk a little bit about African-American bread culture, because I know it'll be interesting. Some listeners might be thinking oh, wait a minute. We was all about rice. Now we're bringing wheat back into the story, and I'm like, hold on. We also heard from chef and farmer Matthew Rayford in episode 1, who will be returning in episode 3 to give us some historical knowledge about the history of rice bread and how that falls in line with Gullah Geechee foodways, African American foodways, how that all of the foods that we've talked about, play a role in the larger historical narrative surrounding African Americans in this country. So yeah, but let's come back to this bread culture, and just my experiences with it. I think my experiences with African American bread culture are very ceremonial, of just cornbread for Thanksgiving,
yes,
cornbread for Christmas. Sometimes I'll make cinnamon rolls over the holidays, or
bread pudding is something that comes up, or banana bread pudding.
Bread pudding is. Yes, or else my family I come from a big banana bread household. My family loves a quick bread.
Yes.
And then maybe on the occasional rare weekday, my mom will pull out some cornbread mix, and I'm like, okay, we cooking today. Oh, we're getting down. If the cornbread mix comes out on a weeknight, we're eating good. We're eating good. I also think about biscuits as well, in the same lineage of biscuits, bread pudding, cornbread, and now we're adding rice bread to the mix, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, tagging on to your note about holidays, this very contextualized bread baking. Biscuits, I think, are maybe a bit disconnected from that, but I know that I've experienced biscuits in holiday times like Christmas and Thanksgiving, or even funeral services. There's so much. There's such a link between a place and a time to be with people and to have a specific type of bread. And so I felt I thought it was so beautiful that you were just going to bake rice bread on a regular day and
literally
record
the
it for
most
us.
regular day. The most regular day. It was a very regular day in the DuBose household. It was a cold weekday in January. I was most definitely wearing sweats, bandana on, hair up, very regular. But it was a lot of fun. I'm not going to spoil the episode too much, but, cooking and baking and being in my kitchen is how I make these histories and legacies tangible. And it's always nice to try something new in the kitchen, especially on a weekday. I'm very much a weekend baker because I like to really take my time, and I'll reserve a whole weekend to bake something or cook something new just to really immerse myself in that experience. So giving myself that pleasure on a weekday was very fun. A little bit stressful because then I'm dealing with the weekday hustle and bustle of living in a 6-person household, I'm like, ooh, my bread gotta rise, but my younger brother got a track meet, so I gotta go. And we gonna hit this bread at 8 o'clock at night when I get home after I eat the Chinese takeout. So yeah, that's the scene. I'm setting the scene for when I'm baking my bread.
But I think there is something really, even though that feels, it's a regular day, we got a track meet, we got to do the eldest daughter thing. There's something so amazing about bringing in the idea of our daily bread. And you and I have previously had conversations about the religiosity and the relationship of food and worship and how that features in our overlapping food cultures and how we've experienced it in a broader sense in food media. But to be able to watch you take these narratives of the first and second episode and really make these historical legacies tangible in your own kitchen, tapping into your ancestry on a regular day, is, I feel like, something that the listeners can also take away, as well as a way to really follow your curiosity and cultivate this curiosity that's not meant to be, you know, the 1 or 2 holidays a year where you interact with these things, but to really really do something about it in a way that's not, it's not that deep. Just make the bread. Just try it out, see how it feels. The physicality of bringing these legacies into your kitchen, I think, hearing from you and having witnessed you go through the process of this, and when you came to the production meetings in the middle of making this bread, like, there was something so funny and so holy about it at the same time. So
yes, and I think to piggyback off of that, just make the bread. Like many of you, I did fall down the bread baking pipeline in 2020 during, you know, the absolute worst of COVID. But yeah, I'm still like amateur bread baker at best, but I think there's something so special about engaging with your ancestral foodways on a weekday. And it makes me think a lot about, shout out to y'all who listen to Love Letters, because if you do, you'll know what Black Ass Tuesday is, which is the day of the week where I make something from my culture and my ancestry for my family to eat for family dinner. I've fallen out of Black Ass Tuesday practice, but I do bring that up to say that you can start your own like blank ass Tuesday, or maybe, you know, Tuesday's a busy day for you. You can do Thursday, you can do Wednesday, or any other day that works for you. And you know what? Even if it is a weekend, that's still awesome that you're able to just connect with yourself and your culture and your heritage on a day that maybe isn't attached to ceremony, a day that maybe isn't attached to ceremony and ritual in the same way that maybe a holiday is, in the same way that any other day might be. So yeah.
I think I want to wrap this conversation up here because I really would love to get the listeners into the kitchen with you. But what do you think that listeners can do with the knowledge that they're gaining and their history, and engaging, or I would say using you as a template, using your personal narrative, using these last 2 episodes and this specific episode as well as a template? What could you offer them as advice to do with the knowledge of these historical legacies and ancestral knowledge today, tomorrow, in the future? What do you think?
That's such a beautiful question. I think even if you're not African American, like, your people have a story. Your people have foods that they ate. Your people had, you know, ways that they went about cooking and preparing food. So get in touch with that. I think for me, you know, I talk a lot, you know, with the women in my family, especially my mom. My mom does such a wonderful job of like keeping track of all of my family's lineages and my family history and all of those things. So start small. Ask your grandma for your favorite holiday recipe. Like, I need my grandma's recipe for sweet potato pie, because I'll be damned if I have to eat anyone else's sweet potato pie in my lifetime, including my own. I've actually never made sweet potato pie, and that's because grandma got that down pat. But, you know, start with asking your grandmothers for their recipes. You know, for at least me being African American, like, so much of the way that my history is passed down and preserved is through the oral tradition. So I definitely suggest like talking to people in your community. And I think Matthew Rayford also mentions this in the episode that you're about to listen to, about just the importance of talking to your community and asking people where your food is from, what food is grown where you are. What food did your ancestors eat? What food does your grandma eat? What food does your aunt eat? And whether that's a staple grain or a staple starch or getting more into the vegetables that your people eat, just getting in touch with all of those people and all of those yous, the yous of the past, including your ancestors, the you in the present, because we do live in a world and a society where it is a feat to stay present in your body and in this present moment, but also the yous of the future. Again, I know things seem dire. I know people are questioning whether there's going to be a world or a country in like XYZ amount of years, but eat. Stay hungry.
Say that again. To that point, eat. And to the listeners who, like Sasha and myself, are arriving to our family histories and our own personal diasporas in adulthood, don't be afraid of asking a lot of questions. Connect to the people around you, even if they don't share the same ethnic or cultural background as you. Just share as many meals as you can with folks. I personally found my actual cultural food history by interacting with other aspects of the African diaspora. Living in Holland, eating Surinamese food, eating food that influences Dutch food culture, scare quotes for those of you not watching us. But it really did give me a way to plug in without having that initial grounding, and removed by following my curiosity and following my connections with people and the sheer joy of sharing a meal with someone. It allowed me to let go of feeling fraudulent in food spaces that are very much oriented around honoring the food that came before you in your direct lineage. So instead of holding so tightly onto that curiosity invited me to be able to have these broader conversations of, I'm from the boat, you're from the boat, whatever boat you came from, let's share a meal. So whenever you're having those meals, actually be present and, be present for what your body might be telling you, because it's there. It's in your DNA. A piece of paper is not going to tell you what you know in your bones. And like Sasha said, stay hungry.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I'm starving.
Let's get this bread.
Let's get this bread, Sasha.
Let's get this bread.
Yes. I'm going to let you take us to your kitchen in New Jersey. Listeners, thank you so much for joining me and Sash. I'm going to hop off and enjoy the bread baking.
Toodles. After learning more about the rich legacy of rice, I knew I wanted to get into my kitchen and try something new. Gullah chef and farmer Matthew Rayford talks about different types of rice bread, which definitely piqued my interest.
Oftentimes when I think about creating breads and using grains, it's really about a sense of place. My sense of place is Brunswick, Georgia, and we have rice in this area. So using everything from a little bit of rice flour, using middlings, which is like the broken pieces of rice, to actually make this amazing rice bread. I love the crustiness of it. It breaks apart really, really well. It makes amazing sandwiches, because some of those little small insights also kind of change how we deal with local grains as a whole. I would definitely say if you're looking to get some of the Midlands or some really amazing Carolina Gold rice, I definitely tell you to go to Anson Mills and Glenn Roberts. They are doing an amazing job with rice and rice cultivation.
If rice bread is really about creating a sense of place, I'm glad that I got my ingredients and recipe from Anson Mills like Matthew suggested. However, I wish the more moderate climate came with my rice flour. Baking bread while battling the frigidity of a New Jersey winter is no easy feat, but I was up for the challenge. Hello, party people. Today, I am making Carolina Gold rice bread. I'm not gonna lie, child, I'm a little scared because I'm a very amateur bread baker. You know, when I was reading this recipe, I'm just like, this is a lot going on, but we're just gonna take it one step at a time. Right now, I'm measuring my flour for the poulish, which I've never made before in my life. So I'm excited. I like trying new things in my kitchen, especially when they're connected to my ancestry. To make rice bread, you start with making your poulish, which is a starter of sorts, and a rice slurry. My selective reading skills really shone when I realized that the poolish needs to rise for 5 hours before I make my dough, and that the rice slurry needs to be stirred before being heated. You know what? I'm gonna say a prayer to God, I don't look that bad. That looked like what the recipe said it's supposed to look like. Yeah, child. That's really all I can do. I can't really make the dough until early this evening. So, thanks for coming on this wild start. I'm sure we've all had similar moments in our kitchen, where it's us, whatever we are tasked to make, and a prayer. Guided by my whispers to my ancestors and the whirring of my decade-old stand mixer, a dough starts to form. Why does it sound like that? Hold on, let me check the recipe to see what I'm looking for visually. Okay, so a smooth, elastic dough forms. All right, I don't know if I'd call that smooth, child. It is looking better. My stand mixer is also just old, child. My stand mixer's been with me since I was in fourth or fifth grade, I think. And for context, I am now 23. So stand mixer, she's true to the lifestyle. My stand mixer is an OG for sure. But I had to take matters into my own hands. Literally. I was calling on my ancestors. The ancestors were speaking to me. And you know what they said? They said, Sasha, you got to pick up that dough with your hands. That's what they said. So I'm going to listen to my ancestors. What does the dough hook know that my hands don't? I feel like my hands might know a little bit more than the dough hook. It made sense that I was convening with the ancestors while kneading bread. Silly, goofy moments in my kitchen are always the breeding ground for deeper reflection. Making rice bread was not only a fun work project, but part of my ancestors' way of life. Matthew gives me a glimpse into this history.
So the slaves at the time were specifically brought over to produce rice. One of the things that happened is when the Civil War got to the point that it did, wheat was something that was cut off from the soldiers from the South. The rice, after it had been made into this bread, didn't get sour or moldy like wheat would. So it held up through travel and all of those things.
Leave it to my ancestors to create something long-lasting and delicious with what they have. While doing my final knead for the night, I reflected on my own relationship with baking, my heritage, and myself. This is really important to me. I've also never baked bread that's tied to my ancestry and tied to my culture. I think if I reflect on it a little bit more, I think it's been a really meaningful experience because I really do enjoy making bread. I think I love kneading dough. I love the science behind bread and bread making and that craft, although it does intimidate me. I think I'm just excited to make something that my ancestors might have made. I'm sure that I probably have an ancestor who felt the exact same way that I feel right now in a lot more dire conditions, worked and resisted and fought and died so I could be in my kitchen at 9:30 at night kneading bread and talking into my phone and getting paid to tell our stories and share this information. So that makes me feel better. Other than making cornbread during the holidays, this was my first time directly engaging with African American bread culture. My worries, like adding salt to my dough last minute, to being unsure about how long to bake the bread for, melted away when I realized that none of that really mattered. I wasn't baking to have a picturesque loaf of bread, but to get in touch with something deeper. I feel very connected to this bread in a way that I haven't really felt connected with a bread that I've made before. I feel like I put my spiritualness into that dough, although I do have a little insecurities. I'm like, I don't really know how this dough was going to work, but my ancestors didn't know how a lot of things were going to go. So maybe I need to take a page out of their book and just the good work, keep up the good fight, listening to my intuition, doing my best, and knowing that no matter what, someone's going to eat what I made. And my stout, pale loaf with the tightest crumb imaginable was eaten. I enjoyed my slices with butter and alongside leftover okra stew when I was feeling fancy. My brothers sneakily enjoyed slices late at night, and every morning I noticed that my already small loaf was getting smaller day by day. Anyone with brothers knows that they'll have the last slice and the last laugh without saying a thing. My Carolina Gold rice bread suffered the same fate. The morning where I was craving it the most, to pair with my leftover okra stew, it was gone. And any sort of bread baking insecurities went away with it.
I like this. It has a good chew. I feel like the crumb is really dense, and I don't know why. My mom's about to cook dinner though, so I gotta go soon. But it's just tasty. All right, I'm gonna go. Bye.
Rice Revelations is conceptualized and produced by me, Sasha DuBose. You also heard from the beloved Taylor Early at the top of the episode. Sound design and mixing is by Sam Girardi. The Rice Revelations logo is designed by my sister, Kennedy DuBose. This episode of Rice Revelations features clips from Jupiter's Almanac. Hungry for more? Find the links to the full episode and the rice bread recipe I used in our show notes.
This episode of From the Pantry was produced by Sasha DuBose, with support from Hannah Chenard, Sam Girardi, and Addison Austin Liu. From the Pantry is an original limited series that I developed for HRN. Our executive producers are H. Conley and me, Taylor Early. Our audio engineer is Sam Girardi. This program is supported, in part, by the Julia Child Foundation for Gastronomy and the Culinary Arts, as well as public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. From the Pantry is powered by Simplecast. From the Pantry is a production of Heritage Radio Network, the world's pioneer food radio station. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org and follow us at heritage_radio and at meaty.gram.